Joni, I understand that you came to environmental humanities or in the environmental field from working with Native American people. Is that the case?
Yes, it was a serendipitous thing. I was in grad school and I was asked to teach courses that would work towards the retention of Indigenous people, students who were coming into the University of Arizona. And so for the first 9 years of my career, I pretty exclusively taught only Native American students, and so this meant that my learning curve was an interesting learning curve because I often knew quite a bit about Native American cultures from all of my reading and my research, and sometimes the students weren't coming to their freshman year knowing everything about their cultures, but everything was flipped. The dynamics in the classroom was flipped because they were all Native peoples, and they were from tribes across the United States. They had grown up on the reservation. They were coming to urban areas, usually for the first time. I was the teacher, but I didn't have their experiences, and so it was a really interesting dynamic. So we were both learning at the same time, but it completely changed my focus of my dissertation. And it made me completely aware of the ways in which Native American literatures were being taught from a wildly romanticized perspective, and it made me aware of the challenges that they face as young people growing up in places in which their parents may have gone to boarding school and may not have learned to speak their language. And so my learning curve was steep, but it was also good because it led me towards the environmental justice movement, and it made me understand how the most vulnerable people in the world are often those that are targeted for their resources. So mining, extraction-oriented resources, and it made me really aware. And so it brought me to the environmental justice movement, and then eventually to the environmental humanities.
So Joni, I understand that you're a major figure in the North American Observatory for Environmental Humanities. Can you tell me what an Observatory of Environmental Humanities is?
Yes, in 2013, the Andrew Mellon Foundation gave a grant to the Consortium for Humanities Institutes and Centers, and the CHCI broke up the grant into three, giving one share of the money to North America, one share to Australia, and one share to Europe. And at that time, we decided that we were going to focus on this expanding, accelerating field called the Environmental Humanities, which was bringing together environmental historians, environmental philosophers, literary critics, together, all with environmental perspectives, to sort of combine our strengths into a field and a methodology which would help to explain to wider publics why it is that we need to scale up our response to climate change. And so we asked ourselves, how is it that we can sort of work both inside and outside the things that we do best? So we have best practices in the humanities. They often include our research and our monographs, the things that we write, our articles, our books. But we wanted to sort of experiment with sort of inside and outside of those methodologies, and we wanted to work more with the public. So we wanted to come up with a sort of name for our hubs that through which we would network, and we decided to sort of riff a little bit on the Future Earth and the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and with the idea of a scientific kind of lab or a place in which we would come together to observe, to research, to gather, to innovate, to pilot. And so in the North American Observatory, and really all of our observatories, we are doing what we call the innovation of new practices in the humanities, which hopefully will help teach us the ways in which we can model new methodologies to reach wider publics, especially on the issues of local environmental change, but also global environmental change.